Did You Have To is a proud member of the But Why Though podcast community.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Did You Have To, the podcast where we look at the live-action adaptations of your favorite anime. And as always, I'm Kate.
And I'm Neysha.
And we have a special guest today, Hector Navarro from DC Daily.
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for rolling those R's. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, I appreciate when I have time to roll the R's. I also have a name where it gets pronounced Sanchez. And so I'm like, ooh, I feel like I'll roll them instead of unroll them.
Well, that's very nice. Thank you. Thank you guys for having me so much. I'm really excited to talk about what we're talking about today.
Yeah, which is Alita Battle Angel. It just came out this past weekend. But before we get into Alita and all those things, we have to do Crunch Time, which if this is your first time tuning in, this is the part of the show where we talk about the things that we are watching on Crunchyroll or whatever anime that is just making its way into our life. So I will go first, and I am watching an oldie but a goodie. I guess it's kind of ecchi, Food Wars.
Nice.
The show is just absurd. So absurd. But it's a good turn your brain off show. Which if you guys seen Food Wars before?
Yes.
I haven't, no. And I think I know which one you're talking about, but remind me what the premise of Food Wars is.
So the premise of Food Wars is a young chef. And I use chef lightly, right? Nobody else thinks he's a chef. He's from a poor part of town, owns a super small restaurant, but is the best restaurant on his block in the area for what they do. And he goes into a prestigious culinary school. But because it is ecchi, the food is hyper sexualized and an entire experience to have in your mouth. So
they take foodgasm to like a new level.
They do. But the food is like, if you think Studio Ghibli food looks good and makes you hungry, the food illustration in this show is really good. It's really absurd. It's really funny. It's also one of those things where my husband walked in the room and was like, what the hell are you watching right now? And I was like, I'm sorry. It's just Food Wars.
Great.
And he's not an anime watcher, so that was a whole bunch of fun. He's walked in on 2 animes now, and it was a Devilman Crybaby, which was also not a good thing for him to walk in on, and Food Wars. So I'm batting a perfect 0 right now for him being intrigued by anime I watch, but I think everybody should check it out. And about you, Neysha?
Yeah, so I picked one that we've kind of mentioned before by accident because you were talking about Re-Life. And I confused that before with a different one. So this is actually the one I mentioned. It's called Re-Zero, Starting Life in Another World. So it's about a boy. He's a high school student, and he's like walking out of a convenience store, and he's somehow transported into like another world where mages, fairies, elves, like all the magical stuff is there. And the thing about it is that he gets to a certain point and he dies, but then he comes back. And the reason why I chose this one is because I just watched Russian Doll. And I was just like, I really do like the whole Groundhog Day-esque like theme in a lot of like TV series and shows. Because like what he realizes is like either something is trying to kill him or he dies from like making a bad mistake. And he's trying to navigate and realize he's there for a purpose to stop a really bad thing from happening. Because it's about like all the connections with these different people that he builds along the way in this alternate reality or alternate dimension. And it's really interesting. It does have the trope of, like average high school boy becomes a heartthrob to multiple anime girls.
Got that good harem in there. Yeah,
they gotta stay on brand, but all the women are badass and they can fight. So I'm gonna let it rock. And that's usually all I have to take. I'm like, oh, there's a harem. Okay, fine. I can let it rock as long as the woman can kick ass. And it's not too creepy. It's not creepy. It's not that creepy. I feel like I have to say that. I feel like
you have to put that disclaimer on all the anime that you bring up.
I do, and I apologize for traumatizing people. You can't keep holding Promise Neverland over my head.
I will, though.
Hector, have you heard of Promise Neverland?
I have not, no.
Oh, well, let me tell you real quick.
Oh, please.
Sorry. The evil laugh jumped out. So basically, children, they believe they're in an orphanage, and that's the only life they ever known. They've grown up there with their mama. That's their caretaker. So they believe that, this is the perfect life, and when we turn 12, we get adopted and we go to loving families. It's a lie. They actually are being grown up. They're actually being fed and taken care of, so they can become demon food.
Oh my gosh! That went a place I didn't think it was going to go to. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. That's my favorite thing about my life. About the show.
It is a beautifully animated show, and it is a really good show, but like you got to be ready for it.
Yeah, that's what I like about the juxtaposition of, this looks like a really good, interesting show about kids and like living in a loving family, but just like anime loves the anime, they put the children in danger, and they are now dealing with very, very serious issues of survival and trying to escape from their nightmare to the promised Neverland.
I think we have our first T-shirt saying too, "Anime gonna anime."
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
I like that. But somebody who doesn't feel like they're really within the world of anime and who might feel like an outsider, that still makes sense to me. Anime is gonna anime.
Yep. Which it applies to so much.
Yeah.
So what are you reading, watching? Doesn't have to be anime if you aren't watching any. What are you consuming, Hector?
Well, right now I'm not doing anything anime because my girlfriend and I, we do a thing where we watch one live action show at a time, and along with one animated show at a time. And right now we're watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine, which I've never seen, and we're in the first season. And we're watching on Netflix She-Ra and the Princesses of Power.
Oh, that's awesome.
We're almost done with She-Ra. I really, really like it. I think it's a great, I just think it's really great. It's really clever. It's really cute. It's really funny. And it's really real is kind of an interesting thing I find about it. The way that the characters speak, they're all young people, but the way that they talk is like, it doesn't feel as written as another show that's like that. That's sort of, marketed towards maybe a similar age group. It doesn't feel like it's like the show talks down to you, which I guess makes sense because it's being like show run by Noelle Stevenson. And I believe she did, Lumberjanes, which is the same kind of thing. This comic book about a group of young girls, and it's kind of cartoony and really cutesy, but they are in a summer camp for girls, and then you learn that they fight monsters and werewolves and stuff like that. But it's about the characters' interactions and stuff. So I really like that. So we've been trying to figure out what we're gonna watch. So like we'll finish She-Ra, and then it's like, okay, what's the animated thing we're watching next? What's when we're done with our sitcom? What's the live action show we're gonna watch next? And we sort of we keep a list, and and like if something piques my interest, I'll be like, would you want to watch this with me, or should I watch it on my own? And it's either like, I'll watch it with you, or you should do that one on your own. The last anime I feel like we did, my girlfriend is a voice actor. She also lived in Japan for 6 years. She's from Massachusetts originally. So she has a very interesting perspective on a lot of stuff, and she loves anime and manga and everything. And she's actually borrowing Battle Angel Alita right now because I got it in preparation for the movie, and then we went and saw the movie, and I was so excited to take her to see it, and we ended up talking about it afterwards, and I was like, I need you to read the comic as well. I need you to read the manga to get her thoughts on it. But so I was really excited when we first started dating years ago now that like she could provide more of a here's the anime you should watch. From somebody who might not be familiar with the world yet. And I could provide, because my whole background is like, I've loved superheroes and comics since I was a kid. So like I can curate the good superhero comics for her. If she watches a movie or a show and she's like she really liked Doctor Strange because she likes the idea, right? We went and saw the movie. So I'm like, okay, let me get you the good Doctor Strange comics so you don't have to like waste your time with the bad stuff. So the last anime I feel like we did, because I have these big gaping holes of anime viewing, was Cowboy Bebop that I had never finished.
That is a great watch.
It's a great watch. So, and that was something I want to go back and restart it because we got like a couple episodes into it and then it got away from us. And then like I was trying to do some research and figure out where in the timeline the movie fits and all that other stuff. But now with them, apparently they're going to do that as a show, right?
Yep. Yeah, on Netflix.
I think it starts production in April.
Very interesting. Very interested in that project and how it turns out. So like that's one that it's on our list, and I should bump it to the top so that when we're done with She-Ra, I can go and tackle that next.
Yeah. And that one's a super manageable show too. It's only 26 episodes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I say with a question mark.
In the movie, if you feel adventurous, but honestly, it's like I get lost. I've seen that series tons of times, and every time I've noticed something like, oh, I did not notice that before because I was so lost in the music and the art of this show.
Cool.
So like it's such a good watch. Like,
cool.
You can always turn it on.
Yeah, I had the I guess like the honor of hearing Bo Billingsley, the voice of Jet Black, talk at an anime convention we went to, and the way he talks about Cowboy Bebop and his role as Jet, like he's not one of those voice actors or actors in general that's like, oh, don't ever associate me with one of the things I did in the beginning.
Sure.
No, he's like, he lives it. He takes pictures with all the Cowboy Bebop cosplayers, and he talks about like the different layers of like how when Steve Bloom and him were, Steve Bloom would exit the booth, he would go in, they would leave notes to each other as Jet and as Spike in the script. So that's definitely a good one. That's a really good one.
Cool.
I attempted to get my husband to watch it, but I started with the second episode, which is about the corgi, and he was like, what the hell are you showing me? And I was like, maybe that wasn't a good one to start with.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see what the adaptation is going to be because because from what I've seen, it feels like it is in a good way more universal than other very Japanese specific stories in anime are. So it's like, I think they could kind of like Alita. Like, I think that they could, I don't want to say get away with changing things, but it feels like it would lend itself to a more universal international adaptation.
Oh, for sure.
Versus other material from Japan.
Yeah, because sorry, Kate, you go.
Oh, no, you go ahead.
No, I was going to say, because like me and Kate have definitely talked about this a bunch of times as we like started this show to now. We're just like, the thing about like a show like Cowboy Bebop is that it's not confined to like Earth, and it's not confined because like Spike is Martian. Like, I think that's like, so I think I'm remembering that right. Like, he says he grew up on Mars. So it's like, he's technically a Martian, and it's so far ahead in the future where it's like, people have colonized different worlds. And like, you can obviously see like the world of Cowboy Bebop is very diverse and is full of culture, but there's not one set culture.
Right.
Because they've developed their own new, like, oh, well, this is Martian. This is like Martian tradition thing here. Yeah. And then like, this is how people do things on Jupiter. And you're just like, oh, wow. Like, that's just, it's so creative how the creator did that whole like just world building there.
And that was one of the things that when I watched Netflix's Altered Carbon, that the first thing I thought of was, holy crap, this reminds me of Cowboy Bebop. And this would be a world that I would see, like, if they can adapt this, they could do that. And this is before they had announced it. I think they've been like plugging a live action of Cowboy Bebop for some time now, but they hadn't announced that it was final. And I was like, wow, this is pretty close. Altered Carbon is probably one of my favorite sci-fi shows of last year. But yeah, I think they have the chops to do it entirely.
That's good. That gives me hope. That's good.
Yeah.
But time to talk about the adaptation that we're here to talk about. Alita Battle Angel, which I may end up saying Battle Angel Alita because it's a little bit different.
Same.
So the movie that we're talking about that was directed by Robert Rodriguez is Alita: Battle Angel. But the Japanese manga and OVA is Battle Angel Alita or Gunnm. I don't even know if that's the right way to say it. It's Gunnm. And so we're working with a few different names. It came into my life first as Battle Angel Alita. So I apologize in advance if I throw anybody off, because I know that, and I know I mentioned him a lot, but he's kind of my litmus test for like a listener who doesn't know anime. Is like, I kept switching Battle Angel Alita and Alita Battle Angel. And my husband was just like, what are you talking about? These are the same thing, right? I was like, yes, they are. I apologize.
Yeah, the thing that I liked was the producer of the movie said that he was able to convince James Cameron to change the title from Battle Angel Alita to Alita: Battle Angel, because he told James Cameron, we only make movies that start with either A or T.
Oh, what?
And I thought about that and I was like, wait a minute, going back to Aliens and then The Abyss and then Terminator and then True Lies and then Titanic and then Avatar. And I think he was correct, other than like Piranha 2, which I think was James Cameron's first movie he directed. So I thought that was really funny. And that's what stuck it in my head, that it is Alita Battle Angel, because it's a Alita because of the A. So
yeah. I actually really appreciate the name change now.
Yeah. That was really funny. My OCD appreciates that.
So to start out, like we always do, we always like to give everybody kind of a baseline of where we are with the source material before we got to this movie. So I have read the first 2 arcs of Alita, which the first arc is the Scrapyard arc, which encompasses this movie, and the OVA. And I've watched the OVA and I've read 1 arc after. And I actually think I read the entire series, but it's been so damn long now because the series came out. Let me just make sure. I don't want to get added. Yeah. So the series came out before I was born. A year before I was born. So I obviously have not read it all, but it is 9 volumes. I've read the first 3 or 4. And eventually I'm going to make my way back to go listen to it though.
Cool.
Or not listen to it, to go read it though. Especially after the movie. How about you guys?
For me, honestly, gifts. I'm not gonna like. I think my introduction to this movie, like to this franchise, was gifts. Like I have always known the name, but it wasn't until like I watched the OVA before going to see the movie, and I was just like, I swear I've seen this before, and I'm not sure if it's like a distant memory. I saw it before, like maybe Toonami aired it. If they ever did, then that's a high possibility. Or I just have seen the gifts so much that I think I have seen part of the movie. So I'm just going to go with the fact that this is my first time watching the OVA through completion. So that's like my first full interaction, but gifts really, because I've seen it and I've known of Alita. Yeah, I'm going to mess it up. Battle Angel Alita. But I don't think I haven't explored the manga, just because like that's one thing. I think I'm going to like just binge read it.
Yeah, I remember hearing a while back that James Cameron actually did have the rights to this. And then through there, I must have learned what it was, or like had a very passing knowledge of the manga, the comic book. And then I remember seeing like the nice newer hardcovers of the volumes that they put out recently in the past few years, in like a bookstore and a comic or a comic book store. And it wasn't until I had an opportunity to go do. So like, I think the trailer was coming out. So then it's like, oh, okay, they're making this movie and it's happening. And it's like Weta Digital's doing it. So it's the people that did like the special effects for, Caesar and Planet of the Apes. They're deciding not to do an actor, but like a CG character. So then once the trailer hit, and then I had an opportunity to go visit New Zealand on behalf of Nerdist and do like press for the movie. That's when I went and picked up the first volume hardcover, just so that I could have some base knowledge before going into what ultimately would be like a brand new experience for me. So I'd always had sort of passing knowledge of, okay, that's it. That is a manga that exists. It's super popular. It's especially popular with a lot of comic book artists that were influenced by it. And I remember reading or hearing about the influence of that in a bunch of other art and comics and stuff that I love. Like, I'll give you another great example. I just got Brendan Fletcher's book, Motor Crush, which is this cool indie comic, and Babs Tarr does the art for it, and she's the one that did Batgirl of Burnside.
I love
yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yep.
So Babs Tarr is doing the art for this book called Motor Crush. So I go to pick it up, and in like the, not in that intro, but it's a book that is supposed to be super influenced by the world of Alita. And I read it, and I picked up the second volume and haven't read it yet, but it's super cool. It's like Speed Racer. It's kind of like you guys were saying, it's like sort of a future world where there's a bunch of different cultures and everything. It's not like American centric, but it just looks so cool. And then when I read the first volume of Battle Angel Alita, Brendan Fletcher does I think it's Cameron Stewart does the, one of the two, they do like the intro to it, and they talk about how it influenced their art, and it blew their mind when they read it.
Oh, wow.
So in terms of like from the American comics perspective, it is hugely influential. I never got into it until I had the excuse to go do the press for the movie, and then read the first volume, and then saw the movie weeks before it came out. And I was so ready for this movie to come out so that I could talk about it with people. I've been like, I have been going crazy, just like waiting. Like after I saw the movie, I kept seeing the same material, like promotional material, that same poster with Alita with the little red paint under her eye. And I'm the only one that knew that was a dog's blood. And I'm freaking out. Like, people have no idea how bonkers this movie is. And it's super cool. So then like the movie finally comes out this weekend, and then I went and took my dad and my girlfriend to see it. And that was super fun. So that's kind of where I came, the knowledge that I had before going in to see the movie. And it was very interesting to have read only the first hardcover volume, which covers some junkyard stuff, like you were saying, Kate, and some other stuff. But then watching the movie, they layered over the motor ball sequence, which happens later in the comic. They brought that up super earlier to kind of flesh out some of the film. Because my reading from the first volume of the comic, my initial impression was this is insane, and it's very shallow. And it's very surface level, just like action and like, violence. Not that I was opposed to it, but just like it didn't seem as deep to me. And my fear was like, oh boy, how is an American movie studio or, Western movie studio is going to adapt this? They're really going to have to either change a lot of stuff or flesh stuff out. For me, my takeaway for the movie is that they didn't change things. They really fleshed them out. And I thought that they did a really good job ultimately with the adaptation, because all of the criticisms that I've seen of the film, which are totally valid. There's a lot of criticisms about the way that they handled Alita's adolescence and that kind of metaphor, some of the dialogue being kind of corny and stilted. And in my brain, I'm going, yeah, but that's also the reason people love a lot of anime. That's also the reason people love a lot of Japanese storytelling, and they love even when it's translated, because it's translated and it's not perfect. And there's this quality of like, I don't know, it's like an international movie or a TV show, and you're like, what's going on? And you kind of feel like you don't know what's going on. Even if you're listening to it as like a dub in English, you're still like, why would they say it that way? What, who speaks that way? And so for me, this was successful in terms of adapting like the feel of something that originated in Japan while still having like American and Western and with Robert Rodriguez, like his sensibilities kind of plastered all over it, but it still felt at its core like it was like a Japanese like storytelling style. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I wrote an article on it for But Why Though, and we've talked about it a lot, especially when we first did our episodes, especially on ones like Dragon Ball or Death Note, which tackle like just their different types of storytelling that we're used here. Is like in the US, our storytelling is very much, this is your origin, this is where you're going, this is how you end. You never really stumble into things in the middle or see super fast progression or dealing with stuff. And in a lot of anime, people are just already strong, and they have to learn how to do things with that strength, which is something that usually doesn't translate well. And I think that there's this nice blend, like you said, Hector, of like bringing in this Western style while still keeping, the anime pieces to it. And one of the things that I've been doing is, I definitely think there are valid critiques out there. But I do know that a lot of the critiques, and they still stand because you can have it of the OVA too. But like I've been telling people to go watch the OVA, which is available, which I'm going to say a lot of times this episode, guys, while you're listening, open up that YouTube window, put in Battle Angel Alita OVA, and it will pop up the entire thing either in Japanese or English, and you can watch it. That is only an hour long. And like you said, it is, they put the motorball stuff on top of it to kind of elongate it and bring you more story. But I completely agree that this is a more fleshed out world. Yes. But it's also, there are some like straight scenes pulled from the OVA. And if you're not sure what it is, what OVA is. So OVA means original, hold on, I picked it up because it's a original video animation. And this means that it's not aired on television. This is something that is only released on VHS or DVD. You see this happen with a lot of animes. So this was something that was just released on VHS at the time.
So like over here in the States, it would be like a direct-to-video movie, like like a direct-to-video cartoon movie. Got it.
Exactly. And so ultimately, when you watch that, you get a real sense for what Robert Rodriguez was trying to do. And this is one of the things, like, before we get into it, I am tired of people just crediting James Cameron or just knocking the movie for James Cameron.
Sure.
Because Robert Rodriguez directed it. Robert Rodriguez reworked the script with what's her name? Leda Kalogridis, who is also a writing credit on the screenplay with Cameron. So this isn't just a James Cameron movie. James Cameron may have had the rights and is a producer, but there are, as somebody who's been in love with Robert Rodriguez for almost like my entire life, although I still am mad that he made me think that Antonio Banderas was Mexican for the longest time. Like I was 23 when I realized he was a Spaniard. It was a difficult time. This very much feels like a movie that like his movie.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. I learned some stuff when I did the press junket. I learned, first of all, I thought a thing that I thought was really interesting. James Cameron was effectively tied up with his Avatar movies, which is why he couldn't get this thing done. But at the same time, he's had the rights for this for a long time, and he wrote a 500-page script. And that script was something that wasn't being easily greenlit. So it felt like, I don't know if this is exactly the case, and I'm sure someone like James Cameron will never admit this, but it felt like he almost couldn't crack it, and specifically had a meeting with Robert and said, hey, I'm working on this thing. I know you like this thing. I'm doing my Avatar thing. Do you want to like take a crack at it, basically? Yeah. And so he gave his 500-page script to Robert Rodriguez, and Robert pared it down to like a working 120, 140-page whatever script. Wow. And he did it like quickly, and he was super excited about it. And when he like turned that script back in, James Cameron, and this is all from another producer, John Landau, who's been working with Cameron since, I believe, Titanic, I want to say. Maybe even earlier, maybe True Lies. I don't know. But John Landau was giving us all this information. He also said when Cameron got the script back that James was expecting to flip through it and expecting that Robert Rodriguez, for the sake of modern movie storytelling and probably Western storytelling, was going to take things away that James Cameron loved about the story. So as he was reading the script, he got to a point where he was like, I knew they were going to take this thing out. He got to that point. He goes, oh, Robert left it in, and then kept reading and expecting the next thing that he thought that he was going to take out. Oh, Robert left it in. And he left in all of the things that James Cameron loved about the script and about the story that basically cemented him the job. So it's a really interesting collaboration of like Cameron throwing everything against the wall, possibly with a 500-page epic, and Robert Rodriguez, figuring out how to do what he does, but also do a James Cameron style movie. I was also told Robert signed on because Robert Rodriguez specifically wanted to do a, quote, James Cameron style movie. Yeah. So he got to play with those toys. He got to work with that budget. He got to flex his muscles while still kind of doing something that is, James Cameron is a great director, but he's not somebody that's super stylized to me. He's not somebody that's like, that has a necessarily strong voice. He makes very mainstream, and that's not always bad, but he makes very mainstream, accessible, palpable, international box office hit movies. Right. And I feel like Robert Rodriguez was probably even like trying to do that, slipping in his little mannerisms throughout, but it's definitely a departure from his more personal movies, I guess. Well, but it still feels like him. Yeah. So anyway, thanks for pointing that out, Kate, that it is a really interesting collaboration. And I think ultimately a very successful adaptation. And I've been saying too, that as soon as I saw the movie, I was telling my friends and stuff, I wasn't posting it online, but I was like, when this movie comes out and people rag on it, they don't know that they're going to really be ragging on the manga itself. Because if I'm like, if you've got problems with the movie, and like we're talking about, there's valid criticisms of the story and of the movie, you can kind of point those criticisms to the manga itself and go, this part of the story's dumb. This doesn't make sense. This isn't fleshed out. This is rushed over. You're totally right. It's coming from the comic. And from that one writer artist who's cranking everything out in this incredible frenetic style, isn't giving that kind of thing that sort of thought. And then you get to so if the criticism is, well, if it got to the movie level in the adaptation, those sort of things should have been updated, changed, reworked, remixed, whatever, to make better. In my personal opinion, I feel like if they had done too much of that, if they had done any more of that, it really would have gotten away from what makes Alita cool. So to me, they did a good balance of remixing stuff while also leaving stuff intact, because the more that they would try to like make things make sense, I guess, quote unquote, for a Western audience, like you're going to lose the fun of what makes that, what made it an enduring classic comic that people love for decades. So,
which to that point, it's just like Dragon Ball Evolution is the perfect example of when people try to make things make sense too much. I'm like, you made Goku in high school a teenager and Chi-Chi's in high school with him, and they're having a fantasy about her eating the strawberry. I'm like, what does any of this have to do with Dragon Ball? Sorry, but that's like a perfect example of them trying to make it more westernized and modernized. And it got to the point where it's like Goku's the reincarnation of an ape god. I'm like, you could have just said he was an alien because we have Superman.
Yeah.
It's basically the same.
Yeah.
Like, it's not that hard.
Yeah, and I think like to that point too, and I think we've seen it most recently with the Death Note adaptation. That was something that rewrote the entire first character, could not make that character as unlikable as Light is in the anime, and completely made things palpable in a sense. It really wasn't, but they made it for a Western audience and ended up removing a lot of these things, because there's one of the things that I saw a lot of was the trope of like the older man with the younger with the adolescent, right? Like people are like, oh, well, that's weird. And I was like, yeah. But the thing is one, I think Rodriguez did a really, really good job in shooting it in a style that showed them as a father-daughter.
Yeah.
But then two, this is a trope that is in so much of anime. Like this is something that is there. Like there are large anime tropes that are sweeping. Like the also like the born sexy yesterday trope, like that's something that is also there. But I also think what people don't understand, and I really hope this movie gets a sequel, y'all. Like,
I need it too.
What happens is she starts off in this place that is very much tropey and very much very adolescent and kind of cringy sometimes, because those are some of the bad parts of the anime. Like Hugo is not the right match for her in the anime or the movie.
I have words about Hugo.
Or the manga. But the thing is that's who she needed at that point in her development as a character. And what people don't realize is there's 9 volumes of a manga and 9 volumes of a story to go through, that you're not going to get that entire 9-volume character development in one movie. And I don't think people understand that. And they're very quick to judge this one movie on those things, when this movie is very much... Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say... I 100% agree. I'm seeing a lot of criticism about the last scene in the film. The scene where she wins the motorball, or she's about to, points her sword up at the city.
Zalem.
And Zalem, and we see Edward Norton. And audience's takeaway on that is like, oh, if they're saving the big bad guy for the next movie, what a ripoff. They should have put all their eggs in this basket. I don't like it when movies do this, blah, blah, blah.
Every movie does this. Sorry.
Yes, to an extent. Every movie does this, especially like you're saying, a movie that is adapted from a long-running series, whether it's a comic book, a cartoon, whatever. And I think that having seen the movie twice, and I'm sure that it'll hold up on a third screening, that Alita herself goes through an immense character arc by the end of the film. And she's in a completely different place than she was in the beginning, like you were mentioning, Kate. And I think that it's really, really satisfying. I think that she deals with the main bad guy in the film, who's played by Mahershala Ali, and like that's dealt with, including the Grishka character, dealt with as well. So really the things that are left on the table it's the same as watching an Iron Man film, and then Nick Fury shows up at the end and goes, you're part of a bigger universe. Like, yes, he kills Ironmonger, but you still, even that movie ends with, I am Iron Man, and everybody lost their shit and they loved it.
Exactly.
And I feel like Alita's basically doing the same thing. She's like, I am Battle Angel, and I'll see you in the next movie if we happen to get the opportunity to make it. I think that it's smart, and I don't think it's unsatisfying. I think that people are only feeling that way because it's the last scene in the film. They're walking out of the theater, and that's their last impression. And they're sort of hung up on that last shot of Edward Norton. They recognize him. They know that he's a big actor, and they feel that. And the same with Jai Courtney being one of the motorball racers earlier in the film.
Yeah.
Both of these actors were asked and convinced to do the movie in a small part with the knowledge of, if we get a sequel, you'll play a bigger role later, which again, Sam Jackson's a great example of like that worked 10 years ago and look what it led to. But because audiences, I think a lot of audiences are they're just dismissing like the rest of the movie that led up to that scene by going, oh, it's not satisfying. And again, having seen it twice, I think the movie's about Alita. She goes through a huge change. She's a different character, but there's still room in the world to have her deal with other stuff and to have her grow as a character. And those other movies aren't going to have Hugo in it, which is fine, which, like you guys were saying, he's a character that's important to her early on. And even having read the comic, I feel that the movie's romance, and I appreciated it more the second time, because the first time I watched it, I went, yeah, that didn't work. And I didn't like the cute character of Hugo. I thought he was shitty. And I didn't buy that she fell in love with him, or it felt a little bit like Born Sexy Yesterday. It felt a little bit like, Alita, that's the first boy you met. Like you can do better.
It's the princess. It's the Little Mermaid.
Yes, it's the Little Mermaid. But having seen it a second time, I noticed a little bit more of the work that they were putting into their scenes together, where I was like, okay, I can see them trying to make it so that, that they have a chemistry, that they care about each other, and it slowly builds. Then you get to the scene where she offers him her heart, which is so insane, but so Japanese to me.
Yeah,
it's very like that sort of almost Attack on Titan level of melodrama that's so dramatic. And what I thought was so brilliant was that it comes from the comic book. It's not an invention. And at the end of that scene, Alita herself goes, "That's pretty intense, right?" And he's like, "Yeah." And it lets us laugh, and it's a little acknowledgement from the filmmakers of like, "Yeah, this is intense and kind of crazy, but we're staying true to the source material, and we're staying true to Alita, and that she would do this in this moment." And I thought that they made it work. So that was a very interesting scene.
And I think, to your point too, this is probably, and I don't think enough people are talking about this, right? Like, this is a female-led film.
Yeah.
This is a Latina-led film. Rosa Salazar killed this role.
Unbelievable performance. Unbelievable performance.
It is never not her movie. It is always her movie, which is hard sometimes, especially when you have not well-known actors, right? Especially up against somebody like, so when you run down the cast list, Christoph Waltz is directly opposite her most of the time. Jennifer Connelly, Mahershala Ali, even just visually putting her up, going toe to toe with Itza Gonzalez or Ed Skrein, and how their character designs are in the movie. She's never once overwhelmed by that, which is an amazing thing to do. And this is one of the things, like, Robert Rodriguez is a grindhouse filmmaker. A lot of the times he's a B movie, like, he loves B movies. He lives in that like eccentric style, and I know, and hyperviolence, and I know some people don't like that, but for me, one of the things that I've always appreciated is when he does center like Latinas in his movies, and when he does make sure that their power is shown, and that is shown even in everything that she is doing. She is making the choice to. Now, I do know that, like, there definitely were some sanitized parts, right? Like, in the OVA, they're not just taking their limbs, they're actually ripping spines out of bodies. That's a lot worse. She doesn't have they humanized Hugo in that way, right? Because it's kind of hard to be like, oh yeah, Alita, you can totally love this dude, he only stole his leg and arm, instead of being like, oh yeah, they ripped the spine out of this person. And that's what happened. But I think ultimately, like, when you look at the movie as itself, like, it did well to form Alita's story, and I want to see where it goes next. And I think the fact that they had these characters come in and had her triumph over it and not having a big bad did better, in my opinion, to help me fall in love with Alita.
Yeah. You know what it reminds me of is again, let me mention Iron Man again. A lot of Marvel movies and really every Marvel movie up to recently decided to omit focusing on the villain. And they would get criticism for it, where they'd be like, Marvel movies have weaker villains than other, superhero movies or other action movies. And they did it all on purpose, because you spend that first Iron Man movie, you spend the most time with Robert Downey Jr. And the payoff is that he became a beloved character worldwide for like 20 movies in 10 years, And instead of focusing on Jeff Bridges, who was great as the villain, but it's like, but we don't care about it. We don't need to.
Yeah.
And that leads it so that, and that was the formula they followed for basically most of their movies, especially their movies that were introducing new characters that you had to care for.
Yeah.
Then you get to the past recent movies where they're like, okay, well, now we've got Spider-Man with the Vulture. Let's focus on him. Now we've got Kate Blanchett's Hela, and she's really fun. Now we got Killmonger. Now we got Thanos. And those are like arguably the best villains of sort of modern action movies of the past couple years. But it's because you had to spend the time getting to know and care about the hero characters. And I also want to mention too, like Andy Serkis is known as the king of motion capture performance, but even Andy Serkis started as Gollum, and he was in an ensemble cast of a 3-hour-long movie, set in a fantastical world. Like, he didn't have to hold that movie together himself at first. Then you get to, then he's King Kong. Again, Naomi Watts is holding that movie together, and he's this amazing creature in the film. Then you get to Caesar and Planet of the Apes. And the first movie had James Franco sharing that with him. And, as that ape got smarter. And the second and third films really do center around Caesar. But by then it's like, Andy Serkis has been doing it for 10 years. This is Rosa Salazar's, as far as I know, first major starring role, and it's motion capture. And, like you were saying, Kate, they're putting her up against this amazing cast of veteran actors, and there's not a frame of this movie where it's not her film. And the performance it's coming through in a character that a lot of people were nervous about because, the eyes, they're freaking me out. I don't know if the eyes are going to work. But the second the movie starts, like, you lose all of that. At least for me personally, it didn't bother me in the slightest. I believed her as a character. She was incredibly endearing, incredibly like real. And every little piece of her performance was able to shine through, and it's pretty amazing. Like you were saying, Kate, it's a Latina in this leading role, and she crushed it. And I really, really hope that she gets the recognition that she deserves because of that.
Oh, for sure. And I totally agree with what you guys have said about her, like the actress, because this is my first introduction to her. I've never seen any of her other work, but like for my first introduction to her, I think she just knocked it out of the park, just because, like you said, I think a lot of people's first reactions when they saw the trailer and they saw her eyes, everyone was freaking out. Like, no, they made it too anime. It's gonna crash and burn. I'm just like, the actress does a great job of conveying so much emotion, and like does a great job of bringing the character to life that I don't even care about the eyes. Yeah. Like, and she's a cyborg. Like, that's the thing that makes it like, that's like, there's like, I think that's what makes it work. It's like the world building around it. The eyes aren't even that big of a deal. It's like for people who have never probably had interaction with anime, or like are really like maybe turned off by sci-fi. I think those are the ones I've seen most comments about. Like when my mom saw the trailer, she was just like, "Why is her eyes so big?" I'm like, "She's a robot." And I just left it at that. I'm like, "She's a robot, Mom." But they're just like, "But why the other robots?" I'm like, just don't worry about it.
I think,
but
go ahead.
No, I'm done.
I was gonna say, like, in like the funny thing to watch too is like when you see her in the trailer, you're like, "Oh my God, she doesn't look human." But then you see her against everybody else, you're like, "Oh no, Alita actually looks the most human out of everybody."
Everybody,
and she has like she has like almost the largest amount of humanity out of everybody. Like. It's something that is just I don't know how to like just like quantify, because I actually felt I've loved Rosa Salazar since I saw her in Maze Runner, but I just loved those films in general. She's in the last two, but I didn't know, like, mocap's hard. Mocap isn't easy. And so I was a little worried. But then like you said, Hector, like the moment you go in, I'm just like, oh damn, yeah, this doesn't bother me. You're killing it. The only time the CG got me was I didn't like it when she was eating the chocolate. That was the only time it felt weird for me.
That was, according to the producers, the most difficult thing that they had to figure out in the movie.
That makes sense.
That sequence, that little scenelet was apparently the thing that they had the most difficulty with. Not the flipping around in 3D and shoving her eye into another android. It was her eating chocolate that maybe they spent the most time on. I don't know, but they said it was like the biggest challenge, which I think is really hilarious. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy because they pull off some crazy stuff in this movie.
Yeah. So for me, some of the criticisms so like just the fact that she's a CG character, I was asking myself while watching the movie, is there a version of this movie that could exist where Rosa just played the character in live action? And I think that there is, but it still would have needed CG touch-ups here and there. It still would have needed, like when she gets the upgrade body and she does that amazing little balance move, I'm like, that would have been all CG anyway. Yeah. And it really does fit with, like you guys are saying, the rest of the world that they're establishing. The fact that she is like a cyborg body. So I think that, there's a version that could have done without it, but I think that story-wise, it absolutely makes a lot of sense. I would have liked to have seen, but again, we'll probably, hopefully get it in the sequel, just more explanation for the character that Michelle Rodriguez played in the movie, her mentor in the flashbacks. And how that whole squad was like all cloned cyborgs or whatever. Like just a little bit more of her origins to I guess to maybe justify why it has to be a motion capture character versus like an actor. But again, it's really not important to this story in this movie, and will probably play a factor later on down the line. But I want to talk about the upgrade of her body. I know that on the press junket, Rosa was saying that she thinks it's amazing that a big budget sci-fi movie like this, number one, is starring a female character. Number two, played by a Latina. So like effectively, coded as like a Latina character. But that's also about a young woman figuring out her place in the world, figuring out her sexuality, her body, her biology, her romance, all of that stuff. That's like this adolescence that stories like this don't usually tackle. And I appreciated the metaphor in the movie when she gets the new body and her self-perception is different than Christoph Waltz's idea of kind of his surrogate daughter. And I also love the line where he heartbreakingly tells her the story. The first line that she says back to him is, "I'm not your daughter." Which I was like, that's pretty daring. It's not a line from this female character. Normally the female characters are sort of there to appease the male's emotions. And she says it in not a mean way, but in a sweet, like in a nice way, but in like a loving way, in a way that says, "Hey, I care about you, but you got to know I'm not your daughter." It establishes her own identity, establishes her agency, what she wants out of her own life. So I really like that scene. But then when she gets the body, she asks for it and he says no because it's a killing machine. He's not going to do it. And she gets the most mad she's been in the movie up to that point. And she slams on the desk like Sonny the Robot and iRobot when he goes, "I did not murder him."
Yes. Good call.
But later when she gets her new body and Ido's assistant says, she says something like, "Turns out maybe she was older than we thought she was," or "She was older than you thought she was," something like that. I thought I really appreciated that was in the film. However, I think that the criticisms from a lot of people, and especially a lot of women that I'm seeing on the internet, where they're like, they're just tired of the trope of male storytellers sort of tackling this in movies like this. And I get that. And I talked about this part of the film with my girlfriend, and we both agreed, like, we would have loved not that Robert and James Cameron and their collaboration wasn't great, but specifically for this aspect of the story, if a female producer, screenwriter, somebody had sort of maybe put more of their mark on that. I know that there was a female screenwriter involved with James Cameron's like version of the script, and it would have been nice to maybe see some more of that in the press sort of leading up to the movie. Again, not to take away from Robert Rodriguez, but I'll give you a good example. I'm seeing press for Captain Marvel coming out, And it's a directing team of a man and a woman. And a most recent little quick snippet showed the female director talking about the story, which I'm like, I think that's smart. I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't think it's erasing the guy's contribution either, because people that are going to know about this movie are going to know who did it. Yeah. You know, people who know about Guardians of the Galaxy. I know that Nicole Perlman wrote the screenplay before James Gunn came in and did his thing. I don't know how much of Nicole Perlman's screenplay was left in that first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, but I know that they're both credited as writers. But I think that for like the general movie-going audience, and especially for a lot of the female audience that doesn't know anything about Alita or James Cameron or the producing story of this film, I think that it would have been cool to maybe showcase like, hey, we did have a female screenwriter on this. This is what she, this is how she feels about the project, and we put it into a commercial. So maybe go check it out. I think that would have been cool too.
I think that would have been really smart, because I think like what I saw initially before it came out, before I saw it, was just people saying, stop letting James Cameron write women. And I'm just like, sure. I understand that. I have my problems with James Cameron, but I'm also like, for me, and like, obviously, like I don't speak for all women, obviously. And I don't speak for all Latinas, obviously. But when it comes down to it, I guess I've consumed so much anime that is usually like this genre of anime is heavily written by dudes.
Right.
Heavily written by dudes. And so for me, I didn't think about it, right? It doesn't invalidate people who did think about it. But for me, I didn't think about it because in my head, I want to see a female character be able to go through stuff and just start kicking ass and having like, and like getting revenge and whooping it, like the same way that I get to see Jason Statham go do that in his action movies, right? Like Jason Statham goes through some shit before he starts taking out the people, and for me, and like I fall in this weird place where I'm like, I get what you're saying, Hector, and I agree entirely. And I agree with people saying, hey, we should have women write, a woman, should have written this or something like that. But at the same time, I'm also like, I want there to be a plethora of women on screen where you can have somebody like Alita who is high action, little story, the same way that you can have somebody that is high story, little action. Exactly. And for me, that is what I was so happy getting that in the movie. And that's one of the reasons why I loved the addition of Aitza Gonzalez's character. Because like she's a sexy cyborg who is like fighting and stuff. Now Alita just dumps on her and it's not even a contest. But it's also just really cool because like, I mean, I don't know if people notice this a lot, but it's something I notice. Like usually there's maybe one Latino in a film. If there is, like when it comes to Latinx representation, I've said it on here before. I've said it in Twitter before. We only get about between 3 and 5% of all talking media. That's for representation in like the general population. That's extremely low. This movie has multiple Latinx characters in it. Or Latinx coded characters, right? Because we don't know what their backgrounds are. That's just really cool to me, and it was something that, like, when Robert Rodriguez took it over, I was like, we're gonna get some of that. Which is really cool.
It falls into that category of that really tricky balance that a lot of fans of media like this have to put up with, have to contend with, and have to deal with. Which is, on the one hand, I just want a Black Latino Spider-Man to just be Spider-Man. Like, I just want Miles Morales to just be Spider-Man. I don't want his story to be about, what it is to be Black and Latino every single time, because it feels like when there are stories like that, like you're saying, Kate, we don't necessarily get to play in the same realm that other movies get to play in, where it's just high action and maybe low story. On the other hand, if they're going to go to the trouble of making a character like Miles Morales half Black and half Puerto Rican, then you want that authenticity. You want the authentic Puerto Rican moment experience. You want the authentic what it means to be a young Black male growing up in New York and Queens experience. So it's a really, really tricky balance. I just want Black people to be able to ride dragons into, combat in a fantasy movie. But at the same time, I don't want there to be an omission of an authentic experience, at the expense of that. I don't want other people to tell those stories because oftentimes they'll be irresponsibly told, and that won't be a factor. So again, it's a super tricky balance. I liked that there was a metaphor for young girl adolescence in the movie. I would have liked more of that. I would have liked, somebody else to take a pass on that. I would have liked some more of that. But at the same time, like you're saying, Kate, Alita is this Latina coded character who is ultimately a younger female kick ass, and she kicks major ass character, sci-fi character that should be able to be said in the same breath as the Terminator or Jake Sully from Avatar, or like you're saying, John Wick, or Iron Man or Spider-Man. Like Alita should be able to, she's, people might disagree with this, but I think you can also define this movie as a superhero movie itself. It has, it has things in there that you point to and go, yeah, that's technically a superhero film. So she should be considered that. And unfortunately, because there just is so little of a character in this kind of a role across the board, I get it when a female character like this has to be everything for everybody, and that's impossible. I don't want every Latin character to be everything for every Latin audience. I don't want every Black character to be every, type of experience of a Black person, for every Black audience member. Like that's way too much. And
it's the burden of representation. It's like, it's a burden of representation. Like we have to be everything for everyone. I know Neysha, you've talked about this a lot on your Twitter and on the pod. And
and because anytime I've made a tweet, I think it was a while ago, I did that tweet where I was just like, what a time to be alive, because we were getting so much representation all at once, like Black Panther, Star Trek, and all these different, all these things that have all came out already. And everyone literally kept on tagging me, don't forget this and don't forget that. I'm like, I can only put 4 pictures in a tweet. Yeah. For the love of God, I can only put 4 pictures in a tweet. This was not meant to be a thread. But then I did go through the trouble of trying to show other representation. But then I realized doing all that, what the hell am I doing? I can't cater to you people, because no matter how many people I would talk about that I was excited about, everyone would just keep on crapping on me. You forgot Stormy Reed, the little girl from A Wrinkle in Time. You forgot about this. You forgot about that. I'm just I was just really excited about Black Panther and Star Trek, and now I'm drained. But it's it's so impossible. And I think that's just Twitter. It's not the space to sometimes have those conversations and tackle, and you can't please everybody. But you make a great point. We can't, all these diverse characters can't be everything to everyone, and they shouldn't have to be. But I agree with you. I kind of would have liked to seen Alita have an interaction with Lana Condor's character, because I don't think her name once, and I think that would have been really cool to see as these 2 young women having a conversation. Granted, it probably wouldn't have passed as the Bechdel test, or we grade it the Clarkeisha Kent test of the conversation probably would have talked about Hugo. But I still would have appreciated, because that's the girl that, to the age that Alita is coded at the time. I think that would have been really cool to have that interaction. She's bonding and she has a friend, because she gives her a little wave when she has hides on her body, and you get the sense that they've bonded, and we just haven't seen that. But
that would have been nice.
It would have been
that's
nice.
fair. Yeah, no, that's really good.
Character, sorry, not to interrupt, but one more thing, Lana Condor's character is the one that's kind of sticking up for Alita. Is what do you have against her?
Yeah. That was something too. They could have evened out the time between Jorge's character. So Jorge plays Tanji. You may know Jorge Ledenborg from the Bumblebee movie. He plays Tanji. He gets a lot of speak time with Hugo, but he's the main antagonist between their group of friends. That's a really good point. I didn't even think about that, because I got excited when I saw Lana Condor, but she had one line.
Yep.
Yeah, I did too. I was just so happy.
The Jubilee curse all over again. It's the Jubilee curse.
But I will say this.
I just want so much for her. I want so much.
And this is something that we can kind of pull in too, is coming off of this this talk about representation. If you watch the OVA is pretty damn white. like between Ito and Shirin and, you know, all the main characters, they're all coded very European. Now with the casting, this is a really diverse cast when you actually look at who's there. Like there's a lot more color here, which is something that you don't see. You don't see a lot of in anime, and two, you don't see a lot of in a movie of this budget. And I think that's something that definitely needs to be called out. But that also leads into the other topic that some people have been talking about is whitewashing. Which in Neysha, like if you want to lead this, like we've talked about whitewashing on the cast before because we've this kind of grow and
I think because it's funny that we talked. Hector, you mentioned Cowboy Bebop. Because like that's something where this kind of comes into tie-in, and then like from the other movies we've recently watched, where we watched Full Metal Alchemist, we've come to the conclusion of what the characters are coded as, and then and how are they casted,
right?
And like in the live action kind of play a role. Because when we were watching Full Metal Alchemist, we were kind of like the big discussion me and Kate had was just like, should the characters have been Japanese or should they have been German? But then it's like then you get into like a whole other like spiral. But these characters are like they come from like a fictional land anyways, but it's like it's mirroring the story of the Holocaust and all these other things, but it's like it's a fictional land, so they could be like they're coded European, and like so like I think we found ourselves like in a rabbit hole of like
because you had
the creator say
exactly, and the creator was like, yeah, I made this like this is to reflect a lot of World War II, and I made these to be European because it's a part of my story because they're supposed to be reflecting Nazi Germany.
Yes.
And if you eliminate that, in his mind, this is what the creator said. The creator was very unhappy with the fact that it wasn't casted that way.
Yeah. And that makes sense after we like found that out. It's just like, you know what? I get that because had this been, you know, if an American studio did it, I think I would encourage them to cast. I think Roy Mustang still to me, like, is coded Asian. Yeah. He's Asian. Like, he's coded to me as Asian. But like the other characters, totally would make sense to have them be, you know, European or Caucasian, and then and to tell that same story. Because I'm sorry, this is not a Full Metal Alchemist movie review. I'm not going down this rabbit hole again. We did that before. You guys can go listen to it. But like that kind of like took away a little bit of the story because they kind of washed over like the whole genocide of the Ishbalans. Like they just like kind of they really went over all that, and I think that's like super important because the Ishbalans are like the people of color in that world. Like they're a minority that was like, sorry, again, I'm doing it. Sorry. But to my point, when I'm referencing landscape, you encourage my terrible rabbit hole behavior.
It's a good rabbit hole. It sets up the conversation because this is not just a black and white conversation. True. No pun intended. Like this is
But to the point about like with Ito's Ito, is it Ito? I think a lot of people are like, well, he should have been Asian, but then because of his name.
Yeah, his original name was Daisuke Ito.
Yeah. But then it's like, and then I think this is where it's weird, and we have to remember like the world, like the world building of like, it's a fictional world now. Nationalities probably don't pay that like huge I'm not saying not ethnicity, but like nationality of like where they're from, because now they have like a fictional nationality of
they've all been shoved into one place. Like the boundaries that we exist in don't exist there.
Yeah, and what's 300 years ago mean? Like because like from what we have in the timeline, it's like 300 years ago was Alita.
Yeah, because I think this is in 2563, 25, it's like 2500.
Exactly. So I'm like, y'all, the world has evolved and grown, and like what we're told is that people from all over the world came here because it's the last floating city. From the OVA, we know that like Ito and Shirin, they came from Zalem. So like, we don't even know like what the makeup of Zalem is like. I mean, like I'm interested to see what that's going to be like because I'm imagining like something from Hunger Games where people are just like super elitist and like they're just watching the poor people and below.
I think you're completely right, and that's why they have that mark of Zalem, which I've seen a couple of people say that it's replicating Bindi's, and it's worn by Jennifer Connelly's character, who is white. But in the OVA, in the OVA and the manga, that is the mark of Zalem, and even Ito has that as well. Yeah. And both those characters are coded white in the OVA and the manga. So it's one of those things is like, if we want to open this conversation up to saying, hey, I think we talked about this a little in our initial D episode, like you need to look at this from the lens of where this was created. Yeah. What is the cultural lens that you're looking at this through? Because right now the American lens isn't necessarily doing this justice, in the fact that this movie actually adapts a lot of this casting fairly closely to what it physically resembles in the manga, in the manga and the OVA. So, I mean, Jennifer Connelly's not blonde, but
yeah, that's in the grand scheme of things. But like, because it's easy for them to. I'm like forgetting Mahershala Ali's character's name.
I'm trying to remember what it was too. Vector. Yeah.
It's super easy to look at a character like Vector and be like, cool, black character, yes, black man, get him to play that person. But then it's like when you run into and Vector is like a name. Yeah. Like that doesn't have any connection to any kind of culture. So we're of course going to be like, we will let it rock. Yes, that is fine. Whereas it's like, I think the issue with like Christoph Waltz that a lot of people had is that, you know, they're looking at the name of the character and where it originated from. Like, where is it? Like, but like in all, like, I'm not going to say all anime, but like in a lot of like anime and manga, of course they're going to write their culture into their work. Like that is like, that's a huge part of anime and manga. And that's something like I really love about it. But in this situation, it's like, do you go with the name of the character and where that name's connection is like and the heritage is connected to, or do you go with the appearance of the character and like the where like the story, the world building? And I think they made the right decision to cast Christoph Waltz. That's not to say they couldn't have casted a Japanese actor. But I'm just saying, like, if we're going off of like, you know, people will always, no one's ever going to be happy. Yes. But it's always going to be down to like, oh, he doesn't look like the character, or oh, he doesn't like, oh, or like you could have done this or you could have done that. And I'm just like, I think when it comes down to it, I think they've made the right choice. I'm not saying it was the only choice they had.
Yeah,
I agree with that. I would agree with that. I think that it depends on each project. Obviously, something like Ghost in the Shell has characters and story elements that are inherently Japanese and can't be separated from that. And when they do, then that's whitewashing. Then you go into that place. With Alita, I was doing press and I was asking John Landau, that same producer, without mentioning Ghost in the Shell or Dragon Ball Evolution or any of the live action sort of big theatrical international adaptation movies that have been released up to this point. I said, do you think Alita has the potential to, as a manga adaptation, break through, and why Alita? And he kind of said in a very smart producer way, he said, it's because this is already a very international story. It's not something that is inherently, you know, it has Japanese origins, and the creative storyteller, the writer and artist who did the manga is obviously from Japan, and that's in there. But he said, you know, I read the book and they go to the Kansas bar. That's named Kansas, like the state in the United States. And I asked him, why did you name it Kansas? And he said, I like the band. And that's why he decided to name it Kansas. But that already says a lot about the world. And I think that it's a very easy way to connect that idea to the idea that they present early in the film, where Christoph Waltz says, we all came here and huddled under this floating city, and everybody from different, because even Alita asks, why is there different languages or why is there different whatever it was? Because a driver goes by and he goes, pinche cabron, and he says that in Spanish. And I was like, that was Robert who slipped that in there. But then Christoph explains the world. And I think that people that would be upset that Ito as a character isn't played by an Asian actor, I think they're kind of dismissing the rest of the variety that's in the film and the rest of the cast. And I think it's really well done. And I think that even it kind of gives me hope too, because in my brain, when I grew up watching Dragon Ball Z in Spanish on Mexican television before it aired in the US, I always saw Goku, which is the most Japanese name ever, as a Mexican guy. I saw him as a Mexican guy. I saw him I saw this Mexican guy with clumps of dirt in his hair, which made his hair stand up. This really messy little bedhead, kid that was getting into trouble. And then he grew up into a guy who had a 5-year-old, and he was like, 24 or whatever. Like he, and he had a wife, and even his wife's name was Chi Chi. And I'm like, that means something in Spanish. So for me, that kind of world, which is, there are things about it that are Japanese, but I think that there are things about it that are more international than they are Japanese. Yeah. And that's not the same for every single manga or anime, obviously, and you really have to take it on a case by case basis. But I liked the international approach of Alita.
Yeah. Which is something that like Neysha and I have been exploring as like we go through this, because I think we both came in with like, stop whitewashing stuff, and then as we started taking stuff in by a case, because each movie is different, and we realized, oh shit, we just started to like talk more and more about these things, because like each source is different, and it should be respected in knowing that like, hey, this piece of art is not coming from our worldview. Hey, this piece of art also should not be generalized the same way you wouldn't want anything like any generalizations here.
And I think it's also important too, is to not take the word of the sole creator as gospel either. Sometimes I think it's important when there were people that had no problem, and I think we all know what kind of people I'm talking about, who had no problem with Scarlett Johansson playing Ghost in the Shell, when there were vocal critics of that, then came the side where it's like, hey, this shouldn't be a problem. And they used the fact that people in Japan were asked about it. And people in Japan were like, oh, no, that's cool. She's a good actor. I'm a fan of that. So they would use that as ammunition for why anybody talking about this problem in the United States should shut up. And I feel that then you still have to take into account, well, why were those Japanese people asked that? Why did they answer that? Did they understand about the cultural context? And those same people that were quizzed in this thing, once they were explained to them, well, hey, Asian actors don't get as many roles in Hollywood, in Los Angeles, in the United States, and this is a big problem. Then they, of course, conceded, oh, well, then, it should be an Asian actor that plays that role. Yeah. So it's still important to and I'll give you another great example. One of my favorite examples of this, George Takei, who played Sulu in Star Trek. In the most recent Star Trek film, John Cho plays Sulu in the 3 most recent movies, and they revealed that the character was gay and had a husband and a kid. And George and they did it for a bunch of different reasons, but one of the reasons was to sort of pay tribute to George Takei's his public life and what he has done as an advocate for gay rights and everything like that, and that he is an out and gay actor. And he was the one who came out and said, I disagree with that. I want Sulu to remain a straight character because I was playing a heterosexual character, and gay actors should be able to play straight characters. And I totally understood what George Takei was saying with that. However, I strongly disagreed, along with the screenwriter of the movie, who plays Scotty, Simon Pegg, in that they felt that it was ultimately more important to show that the world of Star Trek, which already has a long history of being very diverse, actually have an openly gay character, which hadn't happened yet. In 2016, 50 years into this franchise, and they retroactively let the audience know that one of their first characters, a character who premiered in 1966, along with Kirk and Spock and Scotty and McCoy and everybody else, and Uhura and everybody else, was gay from the beginning. That retroactive continuity allows fans in the modern day to go back and watch the episodes from the 60s, and for there to be another element of there is diversity on this ship, and diversity is important to Star Trek. I happen to think that was wonderful. I agreed wholeheartedly, and I also thought that it was a wonderful tribute to the life and work of George Takei. But I understand his point of view, so it's like you have to take into account the cultural, the context of it. You can't just take because original creators will still be problematic sometimes. They still won't have every angle or all the information or whatever. So I'm sure that a lot of, because I hope that more anime and more manga is going to be adapted by American movie studios with big budgets and everything. I hope. And I'm sure that the more that this happens, the more casting decisions will be made, and the more people are going to go look up the original writer or artist or creator of some manga, and they'll be like, "No, it's fine. I like Tom Holland. Whatever, it's fine." And it's like, no, you can't listen to this guy because he doesn't have the of course, he has no problem with Tom Holland playing his lead character from some anime. I'm just using that as an example.
Yeah.
But the cultural, the history of, well, here's why it's a problem, and now we have to explain it to more audiences so that they get that it's a problem, that they demand better of their media, and blah 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 blah. And it's going to be exhausting, but I'm glad that they stuck to their guns with Sulu. I thought it was a wonderful little scene, and I feel that context. It's all about context. Thank you.
It is, because you make a. Oh, sorry, Kate. Go ahead. No, because you make a great point. Because I did kind of like that high pitch when you said you hope that more American studios with big budgets adapt anime and manga, and I do want that. But I do want like you said, I want them to definitely pay attention to context. Yeah. And I say that knowing that we now know that My Hero Academia. Don't at me, y'all, because I didn't say Boku no Hero. I'm tired. It's literally a thing. But anyways, I think we found out that American studio bought the rights to it for adaptation. So we don't know what that's gonna look like. But immediately everyone's like, The Rock is gonna play All Might, and I just kept on thinking and imagining I don't know. And we do this show now, so I'm gonna watch it, and I love My Hero Academia, but at the same time, I'm just I do hope they respect the context, but also, more importantly, I would love for it to be an Asian-led cast with a huge budget behind it. Because there's so many characters.
I think that in a case like that, and even with something again, my little fan Dreamcast is that they tackle Dragon Ball Z again. They do it right. And in my head, it's just because, again, this is my own personal life experience. I grew up with Goku speaking Spanish. I would love a Latino actor playing a Saiyan. And there's no reason.
You could do that because he's an alien.
Exactly.
You could do that.
If Superman Kal-El can look like a white guy from Kansas, then the sky's the limit, whatever. But that doesn't mean that there's no excuse. There is no excuse for not having an immensely diverse cast. And for My Hero Academia, you could have you could make a movie star out of a young Asian talent while still packing that cast with a bunch of great known actors. So they should take that opportunity. And it's also important to put Asian actors on those kinds of in those kinds of roles, because it's another great way to pay tribute to the country that originated the stories. Do you know what I mean?
It all comes down to this massive respect for the material that you're adapting, right? Because even the director of Death Note was I never watched the anime. I just wanted to adapt it. That's a problem. Yeah. You have to respect what you're adapting, because there is already a fan base that is expecting something. On top of that, too, I think that there definitely are nuances that can get made, because it's adapted for an American audience, because it's not a Japanese movie coming out of Japan, because those exist. But at the same time, that also, like y'all are saying, that means we have to. They have to be aware that, if you're going to take something that is clearly written as Japanese, you should probably cast a Japanese actor. Or, I think we kind of talked about it a little with Bleach, because Chad in the Bleach anime and manga is Latino, but he's not played by a Latino in the Bleach film. Because it's an all Asian cast. So those things happen there too. It's just read the damn room. And also, like you said, sometimes just listen to what Asian American voices are saying about these casting choices, right? Because this is affecting them in a different way than it's affecting us.
Right. I liked when talking about Ed Skrein, he stepped down from the role in Hellboy.
Yep.
And it went to Daniel Day Kim, because he didn't know that the role in that Hellboy universe was made for an Asian character originally. So, and that was great. And that was because people spoke up. Yeah. He stepped down. Everyone was like, dude, you're awesome. We're going to support your next project. Yeah. And I'm going to go see Hellboy because they got Daniel Day Kim in it. And I'm like, you guys did the right thing. And they could have just not done that. Yeah. They could have ignored everyone.
Speaking of him too, like somebody asked me, was like, were you not offended by the Mayan calendar on the back of Zapan? And I was like, no, I wasn't, because it's Robert Rodriguez. Like, he's going to put that in everything. He had to find a way to work it in. He put it on the back of Zapan.
And it looked so cool.
So good. And I was like, that's you, Robert. That's you. There's also a lot of Spanish in the background too. Like, not only just like when the cabbie calls it out, but when they're in the motorball arena, there are signs in Spanish. And then I don't know if anybody else noticed, but like all the Martians are pretty much brown, which is also really cool. Which for me were like really neat little things. But yeah, I mean, I think we can keep talking about this all day, but like, do you want to call out some of our favorite parts of the movie?
I'm down with that if you guys are.
Favorite parts?
Like the few, bragging on.
Cool. Oh wait, Neysha, you cut out a little bit. You're coming in really low.
Oh, my bad. Can you hear me now?
You're still really, really low.
Oh, not better?
No.
I don't know what's going on.
Did you move your mic at all?
No.
Unplug it and plug it back in.
Okay.
It sounds like she ran out of the room and is talking to us from the other room.
Exactly.
Okay. How's it now?
No, you still sound far away.
What is going on? Sorry, I'm like touching them.
Did you adjust like the volume on it or something?
No, not at all. I didn't touch it at all. Okay, there we go.
You're back. But yeah, so why don't we each pull out like a favorite part from the movie?
My favorite part of the movie was, and this is something that I actually would have liked a little bit more from the manga, where she goes to the bar, the Kansas bar, to recruit all of the bounty hunters. And she talks about how Grishka is such a menace. Well, in the comic book, Grishka attacks like a few different times and attacks innocent people in the city a few different times. So he is more of a menace, as opposed to in the film, she fights those two cyborgs in the alley, kills them both. Grishka claims he's going to go back and kill everybody and then escapes into the sewer. And for like a long time in the film, like, I don't know, 30 minutes or something, Alita kind of is having a freak out. And it just seems like he's not that much of a threat, even though we learn he goes back to the bad guy and he's going to get upgraded, but he's just not present. And then he shows up at the bar. But right before, or right when he shows up, Alita says, I do not stand by in the presence of evil. Yeah. And that moment, just like, I love that moment. And it gives me chills. It's so good. And for me, it kind of like sums up the movie. It's this like young woman who's being completely underestimated by everybody in her life. And these dudes are messing with her. And then she kicks the shit out of everybody. And then Grishka shows up and kills this dog. And she's like, I do not stand by in the presence of evil. And even then, before that, a little bit before that, she tells Hugo, I'm going to need you to stand way back. And it's super cute and funny. And it's so good. So that's my favorite moment of the movie. Really summed it up for me, and I liked other moments similar to that, but that like summed it up for me.
I will say this on the dog thing. I was just so I watched it in the OVA. It happens, and it's also devastating because it's a really cute dog. But like watching it happen in the movie, I was like, no, I can't do this. And my husband, like, we were walking out, and he was just like, but that dog was the most courageous out of everybody. I was like, stop! Don't bring it up. I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to hear about this right now. That didn't happen.
It led to a very, really smart movie making technique where we meet the, God, I'm forgetting the actor's name, but he played Frank Lapidus in Lost, and he was like the dog bounty hunter with the robot dogs.
Oh yeah,
he's great. So like we see 2 seconds of him, and everybody kind of chuckles because he has robot dogs, and then the little dog goes over and hangs out with the robot dogs, and we're like, ha ha ha, that's funny. Then the scene finally ends down in the sewer when Alita gets cut into pieces. And she's barely alive, and she gets saved by Ito, Hugo, and then that same dog bounty hunter that come down and like chase off Grishka, right? So it like the moment happens where the dog guy chases, and then he calls his dogs back. He goes, hey, come on back, peel off, heal, or whatever he says. And he says to Ito, he just wasn't a dog lover. I hate people like that or something like that. And it let us all laugh because like a devastating thing had just happened to Alita.
Yeah.
And we don't know what's going to happen to her. And it was really violent, even though it was just robot violence. Like, so we're all reeling from that. And then we all get that little laugh moment. And then the scene goes to the next scene where, you know, we're going to find out that she's got a new body. So
yeah.
Really smart.
Which is one of the things that, like, somebody asked me, is this fit for 11-year-old? And I was like, well, it's only PG-13. Then I was like, there's a lot of dismemberment in this movie. Which I know some people also took issue with because apparently a woman fighting can't get hurt without that being a problem. I know that sounded shady, but like that just really bugged me because she actually kicks ass when she's a torso. Like, she is still kicking
with
ass
one hand. Right? No legs, no stomach, one hand beating ass.
Yeah, like
that was pretty awesome. And that's straight from the comic. And I was so excited to show my girlfriend Abby that moment in the book. I'm like, look, one of the craziest moments in the movie. Like it's from the comic. No, but that's a fair, valid criticism. I get it again, but it's like a cliche sci-fi trope.
Exactly.
And there's a bunch of that stuff.
It's cyberpunk. It's cyberpunk and she's a cyborg.
It's in the DNA of this book, but like you were saying, once she gets her upgraded killing machine body, like she's untouchable. Nobody's ever gonna even get close. So
I guess I go into mine. My favorite one was because I didn't think they were gonna do it. I did not think that they were gonna show her attaching Hugo's head to her body. I did not think they were going to do that because I was like, that's too out there. That's too out there. But then I was like, well, you know what? It's Robert Rodriguez. And then I saw how brutal some of the fight scenes were. And I was like, they might do it. They might do it. And then he got stabbed. And I was like, holy crap, they're going to do it. They're going to do it. Which it's my favorite part because it's really interesting to see happen. And you get to see like this tender moment. And it was more of like a favorite part in that I didn't think it was going to happen. But it's also like one of the parts that I wish had been fleshed out more because in the manga, he goes like insane. Like there's this large breaking point that happens with Hugo. And you don't get to see that here. Which is, so it's both like a high point and a low point for me. Because that's like the only time the only time I really appreciated Hugo in the manga OVA, or but that's probably one of my favorite things that they did because I was like, wow, you were really sticking to things here. But yeah, Neysha.
So for me, I definitely like the motorball. Like
so good.
Like just so much action going on, but I didn't feel like I was lost. Like I don't know how to describe it. It's like, I'm trying to think of like a movie where like there's so much going on and I couldn't keep my eyes everywhere at once.
Speed Racer?
No. Kate. Yeah, okay, fine. I guess that is a good example.
It's a good example
because there was a lot going on in Speed Racer when we were watching it. I'm just like, I'm having a hard time with my eyes keeping up with the cars and all the CGI. But to my point about that with this motorball, my eyes were not bothered by the CGI. Like it wasn't like, I've been calling it like the Wonder Woman effect where there's that one fight scene where her and Steve are like fighting back to back and then you see they turn into video game characters almost. Yeah. Because there's so much CGI. And I'm just like, man, it's that thing that pops out for me and it kind of like bothers me a little bit. But you get it because one, it's special effects and there's only so much stuff you can do. But with this one, it doesn't bother me. Like I think it's so well done and the action's really well paced. Like the camera, how it focuses on Alita, like throughout the match, I'm just like, wow, man, like this is like really intense. This is really good. And then like it was also really cool that like she doesn't realize they're all trying to kill her.
That's so good. She's
like she doesn't. She's like, okay, go easy on me, guys. And the one who's like, sure, sweetheart. She's just like, and I mean, that was one of my things about Alita is just like she's very much like you see her grow so much. Like Hector, you kind of mentioned already, like she's like an adolescent when we like meet her, but then she's really grown into her own as a young woman, like this confident person. And I think she just really comes into her own. And that scene for me is like really her shining of like, of course there's the fight scene too before that, like the bar scene, but like that, there's just like so much going on. She's just so capable.
It's so clean and it's so well done compared to other compared to other action movies like that. And I don't know how y'all feel about Speed Racer. I really, truly love that movie. I think it is fantastic, and there's a lot.
We can have consensus that it's a good movie. We can, like we said, it's a good movie.
We did that like episode 3 or 4?
5, I think even.
5,
but it was just because it's weird. It's like, is it a good adaptation? No, but it's like, it's a good movie.
Yeah, because it gets way more hate than it deserves.
Yeah, it doesn't deserve much hate, and it doesn't have to be like the 1960s Speed Racer, right from the anime. Because, like, honestly, when you rewatch those things, it's dated as hell. But what they did with that movie, it's not terrible. Like, our favorite scene is, "Why are you so pale?"
Yes. It's such a good line.
It works. It is something that really does work, like with its modern updating and Western production.
Yes, I need to go back and watch like the original Speed Racer anime, and I need to go back and read some comics and stuff, because I feel like it's a good adaptation. I feel like there's that the meat of that is in the details. I love the idea that the Wachowskis made everything in the shot in focus, even the mountains in the far background, because when you watch the anime, the mountains are drawn with like the same sort of focus and detail that like the something in the foreground would be. So it's just this really interesting approach to like adapting a cartoon that I think it's a successful adaptation of a cartoon. But I think Alita is a better like manga anime / adaptation altogether. Like it feels more Japanese while still being like a Western production,
Yeah, for sure. Like the tropes really help, like bringing those to life.
Yeah. And I think, and the other thing too, because I had heard people complaining about that she goes "Hiya" when she's fighting sometimes, but I'm like, she does that in the OVA. Like that is almost exactly how Alita sounds in the OVA, and I appreciated it. Like it felt like anime fighting. It was just really good.
You
and
make
ridiculous.
sounds when you fight, and that's a completely normal sound to like expel when you are making a move. I
enjoyed it so much, and I didn't think I would. I don't watch 3D movies because they make me sick.
Yep.
But from everything I hear, the fighting is that much better in 3D.
I could not do it.
It's phenomenal. It's wonderful 3D. It's really, really good. I used to work in 3D post-conversion. I used to do it for 4 years. I am pretty familiar with what is good and bad 3D. And for people who like it, for people who care about it, I think that it's really, really good. There was a bunch of screenings out here in LA that were like only available in 3D. And I don't know if that's something that James Cameron and their team like are trying to push for. But I'm happy about it because I think 3D is something that is very misunderstood. It's something that's dying out. I think that a lot of people that don't like it haven't tried enough of it and kind of don't know, sort of what's good versus bad. We could get into this whole thing because I have a whole sort of long history and a real passion about 3D. But I will also say, too, that my favorite 3D stuff is when I can watch it on my 3D TV in my living room. Not to say that big screen 3D can't be great, but like I've always found it to be way clearer, crisper, and more enjoyable, in the comfort of your room where you can kind of see the whole screen as opposed to, listen, back in the day, I got tickets to see one of the Hobbit movies in 3D, and already that movie's not the best. But I had tickets to go see The Hobbit, and it was in IMAX, and then it was like a full screening, so I'm sitting up in the front, and that's not a good 3D experience.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That was my exact Hobbit experience, the very first Hobbit movie. That's how I watched it, and I like half of the screen was fuzzy because it didn't fit into where my eyes were looking.
Right. And that's a problem. And I wish that movie theaters and more importantly movie studios kind of cared more about it, and they did a better job at marketing 3D. Because I'll give you another great example. I've been buying 3D Blu-rays for as long as they've come out, and in the past year, the big sort of companies and movies and franchises that were still putting them out stopped in North America. So I couldn't get Thor Ragnarok in 3D or Black Panther in 3D or Avengers Infinity War. I had to import them from the UK. I couldn't get Incredibles 2 in 3D from Pixar, which is gorgeous. I had to import it from the UK on like a region-free Blu-ray. And that's a bummer. Like I had to import Coco in 3D. And those movies, especially the animated films, especially, some of the Marvel movies and action movies, they're well done. And I had wished that for years, and this is me coming from somebody who worked in on the 3D side of movies for a couple of years, for 4 years. So I kind of know about how things went down. I was working on 3D movies right before the first Avatar came out. And then I worked for an extra, couple of years after that. So I've seen how it's sort of gone up and down and crashed and burned. I wish that movie studios cared more so that when they put out a 3D screening of Hobbit, for example, that they would specify to their theaters, okay, you can't sell tickets for seats, in the first 4 rows or whatever. Yeah. If your theater is laid out this way, like it has to be this way. I wish that they had done a better job of marketing it at a Best Buy, so that people would actually give a shit and want to buy a 3D TV, because I've had so many people, you guys, come over to my apartment for movie screenings. I'm doing the Marvel movies over the next couple of weeks, and people come over that don't like 3D. They don't know enough about it. They're not interested in it. It hurts their eyes. It hurts their head. They come over to my apartment and watch it on my couch, and they're like, oh, this is great. This is awesome. It's clear. I can see it, and it adds to the story versus it being like a gimmicky thing. So I'm really bummed that overall nobody cares about 3D, but I'm happy to report for those that do, Alita Battle Angel, they did a really good job on it. They knew where to push it and where not to do it. The action stuff where she's flying at the screen and the Garishka's like finger hands are, the chains, the pieces, and they're like, all of that stuff looks awesome. But also the quieter scenes is, I think, the thing that people don't really notice when you're watching 3D movies is like where it's just two people talking. They're not uncomfortable to look at. They know where to place the depth and what to use to kind of further the storytelling and that the mood in that moment. And it was all really, really done. There's only a couple little minor things that I would say as a 3D like viewer that I'm kind of looking for that were like not good, but it's super minor and it's stuff that most people don't really ever notice. So if there's anybody listening to this that's like going to try it out, I would say to try it. But here's the trick. If you're going to go to the theater, try your best to get a seat ahead of time in the middle of the theater, meaning middle from like the sort of back to the front and middle left to right. When you get that nice sweet spot where you can kind of see the whole screen in your purview, you can see everything in your viewpoint. Then and it's another tricky thing too, because not every theater has like great digital projection or whatever. Like, not every theater is going to really care about making sure that the 3D looks really good and that they have the right brightness levels and all that stuff. But every town in America has like a good theater and a bad theater. Go to the good one. You know what I'm talking about. In your town, go to the nice one. And if you wanted to try it out, I had a lot of fun with it, and I thought that it added to the movie. But from hearing from you guys, it looked like there were also 2D screenings available, which was not the case in my neck of the woods. So that's cool that people can see it that way too.
Yeah, because for me, I've kind of I avoid 3D movies. I haven't seen one in a really long time just because I get really sick. But it's also probably because like I either sit really close or I purposely sit on the end because I don't like sitting next to people I don't know. Neysha, you will experience this when we start going to our South by screenings. I refuse to sit next to people I don't know. So usually it's like me on the very end and then my husband on the inside seat. So I never have to experience that. I mean, Alita is something that one, I want to see again in theaters. And two, I would love to actually experience that way. I'll even put my contacts in.
There you go.
But to do a little bit of the numbers, right now, Alita is sitting at 42 million grossed in the US and 94 foreign, which puts it at 137, a little over 137 million. The budget was 170 million, and it still hasn't opened up in Japan and China. So this is a really good pace, really, really good pace and a really good sign.
Yeah, for sure.
So hopefully we get another one. And then critics have it at a 60%, but audience has it at a 93.
Really?
Yeah, on Rotten Tomatoes.
That's very interesting.
Which is something that I've actually seen on my feed. Like I have yet to see. I think the film critics I followed had a lot to say about it negatively, but a lot of just like the people I followed have had like amazing experiences with Alita.
Well, look, you're gonna get. I have a buddy who really, really loves it when a movie gets a 60% on Rotten Tomatoes, because he's not a fan of Rotten Tomatoes because it's also, people use it incorrectly. Yep. He has to point out constantly, if a movie has 95%, it could just mean that every single one of those critics just gave it a passing grade. Like they're like, this is okay, versus something that has a 60%. To him usually indicates that some people will love it, some people will hate it, but there's an opportunity for like something different and interesting in that. And sure enough, a bunch of the movies I love, I mean, I know Speed Racer has not a great Rotten Tomatoes score. Like there's a movie that I love, John Carter, came out from Disney from 2012.
Oh, like, I remember that.
People don't like that movie, but I love it. And that's sitting at like a 55 or something %, like somewhere in there. And I'm like, yeah, but I love that movie. And I read a lot of criticisms of something like that. And I'm like, yeah, sure. But see, this movie speaks to me. So it's like, I think that's a good thing. I think that this movie is not for everybody, but for those who it will be for, it's going to hit in a big, bad way.
Yeah. And I think the ratings, like you said, like that's a good indication that this movie can spark discussions. Like we've been talking for over an hour and a half, and we've kind of like delved into different parts of like what we liked, what we didn't like. And I feel like that's really a good point. Is just like, you're going to have people who hate it and you're going to have people who love it. But I think that makes me want to go watch it more. I kind of tend to like not really go by Rotten Tomatoes when a new movie comes out, because it's always so skewed when it's like, it's 100% certified fresh. But I'm just like, okay, but why is it like, I think Green Book?
Yeah.
That movie, Mahershala's movie that just came out. I'm just like, no, I'm good. I don't want to go see it. I'm giving it time. Like, let the Oscars die down. Like, maybe I'll eventually go to see it. But like, it's just like when people like rave about it so much, I'm like, why do y'all love this movie? So I'm like, I get suspicious when it's like, it's 100%, it's perfect. And then like, I'm gonna give it some time and let the critics die down. Then I'm gonna go and forget all about all that. Just because I feel like I'd rather go into a movie with a 60% or a 70% and give it a shot versus like something that everybody claims they love. And then because I've been burnt that way before when I go see a movie that's like, oh, it's absolutely great. I'm like, is it though?
I mean, and that's also why, like, I don't trust Rotten Tomatoes movies for action movies or comic book movies sometimes. Yeah. Because then you'll get, like, that one dude who had to review it for his website, but it's really not his bag. And so he's just like, it was a standard comic book movie, 30%.
Like, how many people did that with Black Panther?
Exactly. I'm like, so it did its job, but that's not, like... I wish it took into account, is this somebody who actually cares about these types of movies? Because that changes it a lot. But we can do round of final thoughts and then we'll get out of here. But thank you so much, Hector, for coming on.
You guys, this was a blast. Thank you so much. This was a great conversation. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I loved everything you had to say. I loved everything we all said.
You're welcome anytime.
Yes.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you, guys.
And my final thought is, give Robert Rodriguez big budgets, please. Like, I love seeing what he could do with a big budget. That's kind of my final thought. That and cast Rosa Salazar in all the things.
Oh, yeah. I think that's going to happen, yeah. My final thought is I hope that we get a sequel to this. I hope that a lot of the people who put together the first one get to come back, and I'd like to see even a part 3, and then maybe that's it. Like maybe find a way to put those 9 volumes of the manga across 3 movies, and I would be a happy camper. And I remember I tweeted it originally when I first saw the movie when I was in New Zealand, when I flew down there for the press, which is I want more anime and manga adaptations like this. Yeah. And that means that you take care about adapting the subject material, and you understand what makes it unique and cool, and you leave that intact, and don't make Goku a high schooler, and then you'll be golden.
Yes, that's all you have to do. That is, oh man, yeah, Hector, you're my favorite guest so far.
Please thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes. So my final thoughts are a few things. I like the pacing of this movie a lot. Like, I think it's just a really well-paced movie because it does a really great job of just like world building and character building and developing. 2, I'm glad Hugo is gone. I think we don't have we can totally drag him for the next 5 minutes, but I'm like, I just did not. There's just something about him I did not like from the get-go.
This sounds so mean, but I didn't like his face. He had a punchable face to me. I don't know. He just looked. You
can't be that whiny. Handsome, live in the slums. I'm kidding.
He looked whiny to me. I don't know if that makes sense.
He did, and I think it took me to watch the OVA to have a slight bit more empathy towards his character than I did for him in the live action. It took for me to watch the OVA to realize, oh, this is why he's so focused on his dream. But then I'm just like, you're really selfish. And you're not thinking, you are your body is not, they're not going to let you into Zalem with that body. And this isn't me. This isn't me body. I'm not body shaming. I'm sorry, that sounded terrible. But you are a head on a robot body now. They're not going to let you into Zalem. If they didn't let you into Zalem the way you looked before, they're not going to let you in now. How are you going to? You don't even have any money. There was just so much in that scene. And I know it was supposed to be very emotional, but then I watched the anime and I'm like, okay, I feel a bit more emotion, but at the same time, you're not thinking, sir. But he did just go, I have to keep reminding myself, he did just really go through a traumatic thing and his head is on a robot's body. So he hasn't processed that yet correctly. But it's just Alita is willing to give up so much. She's willing to give him her heart for him to stay, for him to be happy. And it's just even that's not enough for him. And I'm just and then you realize he was doomed anyway. He was, because he's oh yeah, he's going to send me to Zalem. He's going to take your organs and send them to Zalem. So I'm sorry. I'm gone. I realize sorry, Hector. This is what I do on this show.
No,
we didn't get to hear your thoughts. We didn't get to hear your thoughts. Yeah.
But I was saving this towards the end anyway, so we didn't have to drag him too much. But there was just so much there with that character, and it took for me to explore the OVA, which makes me now want to go and read the manga to see if will I care about him more or will I not. He's Goku levels of me not having Goku, the live action adaptation. Let me just specify, because Dragon Ball Super has my feelings growing on Goku better. But it's he is that level. This kid is that level of my likability. Okay, I'm done. I swear. Oh, no, and I want Lana Condor to come back in the sequel, and I want her and Alita to be friends.
Ooh, yeah. I'd be totally down with that. That would be good, because just because Hugo's gone doesn't mean that she can't be friends with the one that's alive.
Yeah, and Jorge's gone too. So you mean I'd really like it if we got more women in scenes together talking and it not being related to the boy they like.
Yeah, that is a really good point. That's a holdover from anime, right? It's usually one woman, whole bunch of dudes. Sometimes outside of harem. Of course.
It's a holdover from the Smurfs. It's a holdover from everything.
Yeah,
the entire history of media.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, I'm done. I'm sorry. I got that off my chest.
No, I loved it. I loved it. I'm here for you dragging a character, because I feel you do it every time, and I'm always here for it.
I literally give me an anime I've watched, and there's probably a character I'll drag. Not not to shit on, not to hate on, but I will just pick at flaws that bothered me. I feel I have to make sure that's known. I don't just hate things, y'all. It's strategic.
So what would we rate this? And if this is the first time you're listening, we rate on how many drinks of alcohol did we have to take in order to watch this or watch it again. 0 is the best and 10 is the worst.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, I would say I would need 0 drinks to watch Alita again. But the second time I watched it, when I went to the theater, they had that swanky little bar inside the theater, and I was like, I'm going to get their little Alita themed drink, and I had a great time. So I would want a drink or two while watching the movie just for fun. But it's a 0 needing of a drink for me to watch it again.
Nice.
Neysha?
Let's see. For me, honestly, I'm gonna give it it's complicated. Because I truly don't believe things are perfect, but it's hard to say that when I did say Lupin the Third was perfect. Our Lupin movie was perfect. But no, I would give it.
We also said that about Rurouni Kenshin too.
Did I? damn, see, there I go. I'm contradicting myself. All right, I'm gonna give it a 1. And it's that 1 is because I have to get through Yugo again. Yeah. And 1.5 because I want the nurse to have more lines.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. That's it. The black nurse. I want her to have more character development. She was there, but I want more, just a little bit.
That's fair. I'm gonna go with 1 for your same reason, Hugo. Gosh, I gotta get past that. Like, because he's not a lot of the movie. He's quite a bit, but I just like Alita more by herself, which we're gonna get hopefully if we get a second one. Yeah, but why don't you tell everybody who's listening where they can find you, Hector?
You guys can find me on the internet at Hector is Funny. I'm also on episodes of DC Daily that you can catch on YouTube and on the DC Universe app streaming platform. And I'm also on just follow me at Hector is Funny on Twitter and Instagram, and I post all my stuff. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. Yeah.
And as always, you can find us at DYHT_pod on Twitter. Let us know what you thought about Alita. And make sure that if you're listening to this on iTunes, that you take a minute to rate, review, and subscribe to us. It really helps us out, and it's the best way to support us. And you can find me at OMMythrandir on Twitter.
And you guys can find me at Twitter I messed that up. Anyways, you guys can find me on Twitter at LA_NEY_SHA. That's La Neysha. And yeah, now I have to do the close out.
Now you gotta do our Dragon Ball Z closeout.
I got this. Will I ever stop shitting on Yugo? Will we get a sequel to Battle Angel Alita? Oh, dang it. Alita Battle Angel?
Yes.
And will I remember to call it the correct name? Find out next time on Did You Have To? Bye.